Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of Syracuse Sports. Brent Axe back with you as we continue the May Madness. There's a great Tom Petty song, underrated Tom Petty song, in my humble opinion, one of my favorites. It's called All or Nothing. And this is the Syracuse University men's lacrosse team. They have made it clear from the beginning of the season that all they care about is winning a national championship, and they are all in. Chips in the middle of the table, every cliche you can think of, because this is a group of seniors that is locked in on one thing and one thing only. So Syracuse is one win into the tournament. They are one win away from getting back to back-to-back Final Fours. Last year, Syracuse made the Final Four for the first time since 2013. And it's kind of eerie how similar this path will be. So last year, Syracuse wins a one-goal game, a thriller, at the JMA Dome against Harvard, a one-goal game in overtime. Now, Sunday's win over Yale for Syracuse was not in overtime, but it was darn close. Jimmy McCool made two of the best saves you will see a goalie make, two of the more clutch saves you will see a goaltender make to avoid overtime with about 30 seconds remaining in that game. McCool's performance, to use that old expression with goaltenders, really stood on his in the second half. 17 total saves in that game, and he was probably about this close to getting pulled in the first half. Just wasn't seeing the ball, wasn't playing well. It had to cross Gary Gates' mind to put Mike Ippoliti into the game for Jimmy McCool, but McCool stood in there, and as Joey Spallina said after the game, there is nobody we'd rather have in that net. And as it turned out, Jimmy McCool dealing with a lot of personal things last week and still dealing with, certainly with the recent death of his grandmother. So we certainly send condolences to me and his family as he deals with that. But one goal win it was for Syracuse, and they go to Hofstra to try and clinch a Final Four bid, just as they did last year. That game, Syracuse's win over Princeton, was an instant classic. It was an offensive explosion. Joey Spallina, 4 goals, 4 assists. Everybody got a box score that day, and Syracuse was off to Foxborough. A trip to Charlottesville is on the line this time, and Hofstra is the setting again, and it's North Carolina, a team that has beaten Syracuse twice so far this year. And one of the interesting subplots in both of those games with the struggles of Jimmy McCool and John Mullen. In the first Syracuse-North Carolina game, Jimmy McCool was actually pulled because he struggled so much, giving up 12 goals on 21 shots. He gave up 12 goals as well in the second Syracuse-North Carolina matchup. Almost very similar stats, by the way, although the first game he struggled a bit more than the second game. So comes in with a little score to settle with North Carolina. The Tar Heels come in without potentially one of their best players, Owen Duffy, who's up for the Tourathon Award this year as the best player in college lacrosse, as Joey Spallina is as well, has a bit of a hamstring issue. He did not play last week in North Carolina's 24-6 win over Albany. Even if he does play, he certainly will not be at 100% this week. So Syracuse will be bound and determined to stop Dominic Petramala once again, the son of Dave Petramala, the former Syracuse defensive coordinator, of course, the longtime Johns Hopkins coach, one of the best defensive players in the history of the sport, who gets a third crack at Syracuse. Now, the other player that struggled in both North Carolina games, but maybe turning things around, is John Mullen. John Mullen, Syracuse's face-off ace. He was one of the best face-off guys in the country a year ago, ranked in the top 10 in the country. This year he's been kind of middling somewhere in the middle 40s. Just has not been himself, has not been quite as dominant. And Brady Wambach for North Carolina is the clear best face-off guy in the country. He frankly should have been nominated for the Tourathon Award just based on his dominance at the face-off X. So the familiarity is there. Syracuse has been down this road twice already and lost. And the old adage in sports, and be careful when you write scripts in sports, as we know, but it truly is hard to beat a team 3 times in one season. That'll be Carolina's task. Syracuse's task will be to beat North Carolina for the first time, and it's all or nothing. If they lose, they're out. If they win, the path continues for its stated heat-seeking goal, championship or nothing. If John Mullen can hold his own against Brady Wambach, and Jimmy McCool can improve on the struggles in the first 2 games. By the way, Joey Spallina has not scored a goal against North Carolina this season. I feel like we're going to get a similar game to Syracuse-Princeton last year. The symmetry is just too hard to ignore, and I do think Syracuse will win and advance to Charlottesville in the Final Four. But what does Quint Kessenich think? Quint Kessenich, Paul Carcaterra, and Ishroff Dana Boyle will be on the call for ESPNU in this matchup. They are one of the great broadcast teams in lacrosse. It is a show, as Quint and I are going to talk about, to watch those guys call the game, let alone listen to the broadcast that they do. Quint Kessenich, one of the best voices in the sport. You can read his weekly column and his top 25 ranking. Of course, hear his commentary on all the ESPN properties about lacrosse. Let's get Quint's take on the Syracuse-North Carolina matchup and the other quarterfinal matchups to determine the 2026 Final Four in Charlottesville. That is coming up. So, let me remind you to please subscribe to this podcast via Spotify, Apple, YouTube, wherever you get your pods. Become a Syracuse Sports Insider today. Love our Syracuse Sports Insiders. Love the back and forth. The lacrosse fans have been amped up, and it's been great to hear from you guys throughout not only this tournament, but this season. The great back and forth we have during games and all the latest news, information, tidbits, and everything happening in the world of Syracuse sports. You just want to shoot the breeze and talk SU Sports. That's what the Syracuse Sports Insider text line is for. So get in touch and get direct text message access to me anytime with your thoughts, your opinions, your analysis, things you want me to ask players and coaches. Shout out to my guy Jeremy, who's a big Syracuse lacrosse fan. Every week sends me a list of things he wants me to ask Gary Gate about, Syracuse lacrosse head coach. That's what it's all about, right? The direct access. Cut out the social media clutter. There's so much crap on social media these days. Just get it straight from someone you trust. I hope you trust me. I trust you. But get in touch and have direct text message access to me anytime. We'll be there Saturday in Long Island. I'll give you full coverage on the text line, in addition, of course, to what you'll see on syracuse.com as well. Not sure what the pod situation is going to be from Long Island. It's going to be a busy Saturday, but I'll keep you up to date. Our Syracuse Sports Insiders will get all the latest and greatest information first via the text line. So sign up for both of those things. And also a reminder, friends, maybe one of our insiders out there fits this description. We're always on the lookout for your original music here on Syracuse Sports. Love to highlight it. If you're an independent music artist, if you're in a band and you want your music to get a little more exposure, and we're all in kind of that Syracuse sports community, and it's been great to hear from a lot of Syracuse sports fans all over the place, not just from in Central New York, though we've highlighted a number of bands that are here in Central New York as well. If you want your music highlighted here, just get in touch. It's all in the show notes on how you get in touch. Basically, you just got to send me an email, and I'll send you a couple of things, get your permission to use your music. And just like my friend Craig Marshall did, we've featured Craig a couple of times here on the pod. We're going to go back to his terrific music here. So what we'll do is we'll play a little bit of a song from Craig Marshall here. It's called Turn Around. And then we'll play the song in its entirety at the end of the podcast. And that is something we can do for you as well. So get in touch if you want your music highlighted here on Syracuse Sports. So let's listen to a bit of Turn Around here, and then we'll turn around and listen to Quint Kessenich talk a little lax.
It was late somewhere, it was closing time. I was only trying to escape my mind. When you caught my eye and it made my day. But it didn't last long, you were walking away. Oh, what else could I do? Make this dream come true.
Quint, I feel like the gods are aligning a little bit here. So Syracuse plays a one-goal game in the first round last year. They go to Hofstra and play an instant classic against Princeton. Well, they had a one-goal game in the first round, and here they set up what could be another high-scoring game at Hofstra once again against North Carolina, a team that's beat them twice this year. But that's not where I want to start. I'm setting up all this offensive conversation, but I do want to start in the net. You've played the position. You know how lonely it can be sitting there in that crease. You called the Syracuse-Yale game. To see the performance of Jimmy McCool, what happened in the first half, where frankly at halftime, it's got to cross your mind that maybe they're making a goalie change. He just wasn't seeing the ball. He was struggling. But they stick with him. He hangs in there, has an incredible second half. The saves at the end of the game were absolutely electric. And then we find out, of course, that he had a very trying week. Tell us what he's going through as best as you can as a goalie. Not only just the ups and downs of a game, but having to block out, of trying a time for him personally as well, and lock in on a very important game.
Yeah, I lost my dad when I was a senior in high school, so lacrosse was always kind of like a safe place for me. And because the sport is so mentally engaging, you forget about everything and you're focused on the ball. And I think in Jimmy's case, I watched the game. I rewatched the game yesterday. I thought he made the last save of the second quarter. He had struggled. It was a clean save that he actually caught. But I give him a lot of credit for going in at halftime and hitting the reset button and finding his best game after struggling in the first half. That's not easy. And I think you're seeing now in college lacrosse with the shooters being so their velocity, placement, and deception have never been better. I think it's really taxing these goalies. And so your mental game, in Jimmy's case, somehow going in at halftime, recalibrating, getting himself right, and coming out and getting off to a really strong start in the third quarter. You could see his body language perk up. You could see he had some bounce. You could see his attitude changed internally. That shows on the surface. And then he continued to roll. So that to me, that's a sign of a veteran goalie. Somebody who can compartmentalize failures and just kind of block it out, erase it, and just always looking forward to the next shot. So I give him a lot of credit. In terms of dealing with the loss of his grandmother, that's going to show up Monday through Friday more than it is on game day. It's going to could impact your sleep, could impact your amount of time you're spending on the phone talking to your family. Obviously, you're hurting. And it's less time that you're thinking about lacrosse and more time that you're thinking about your family, obviously. And so that's never an ideal situation. So again, he deserves a lot of credit for fighting through what was not a great week for the young man.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because the two of the biggest games that Jimmy struggled in this year were North Carolina. He got pulled from the first North Carolina regular season matchup. The second one, he gave up 12 goals as well. It was a little better in the second game. It was a closer 2-goal game, but this is a team that I don't want to say is in his head. I don't think that's the right way to put it, but certainly he's got to improve against. And it's an offense that, as we're going to talk about here, that can just pile up goals left and right. I mean, Dom Petramalo is dropping 10 in one game last week. I think Syracuse is better than Albany, but so there's some added motivation here and focus and adjustment. So it's a rare thing that you get to play somebody 3 times in a season, but I guess it's a good thing from both standpoints that these two teams know each other well. So if McCool's going to make a leap here, it would seem like he's got an opportunity here, knowing this offense as well as one can going into a quarterfinal matchup.
The ACC, when I looked at it, kind of broad brush, has been really rough on goalies this year.
Yeah.
When Duke came up to the Dome, their starter Patrick Jamison got yanked. We've seen Jake Merrick of Virginia be hot and cold. We've seen North Carolina now with a goalie change. Josh Marcus is no longer. You mentioned Jimmy being pulled in that game. It's a league that's been highly, highly unfriendly for goalies. And you look around the league, there's just some shooters that are just downright nasty. From guys like Luke Roa, Michael Leo of Syracuse. North Carolina's Dom Petramala. He has owned Syracuse this season. I think about Ben Johnston and Max Sloat of Duke. Virginia, obviously, with Ryan Colsey, they're no longer in the tournament. But top to bottom, the league has just guys who can bring it and make goalies look silly. It's a tough year for goalies in the ACC. To get to 50%, you get to 50% in an ACC game, that's pretty darn good.
Quint, you touched on it there. I'm a Buffalo Sabres fan. They made a goalie change this week in the playoffs, and it worked. And it's not like Alex Lyon was falling on his face, but it just felt like he didn't have the juice. They put Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen in, as we're speaking here on Wednesday, heading into another matchup in that series. But that goalie change worked. North Carolina did the same thing. You mentioned Marcus just didn't have it in that Duke game, didn't have it down the stretch. They go to the senior and Kent Good and make that change. That's a big change to make at this time of the year. But it feels like let me ask you, why was that change necessary? What does he bring to the table? Maybe that Marcus just wasn't. And why do you think that Joe made that change?
Well, you watch Carolina's last couple games, and Marcus was letting in some goals that, in their opinion, he should have stopped. Again, North Carolina has not done a great job in recent history with their management of the goalie position. Colin Krieg was a very good goalie. I believe he was some kind of ACC honors when he was a freshman and sophomore, and his performance never improved. Last year, they brought in Michael Gianfrancaro from Princeton, and he regressed. This year, they promote Josh Marcus as a freshman right away, and there's a little bit of a freshman wall when you're starting practice on January 6th and you're seeing that amount of rubber, and his performance tailed off at the end of the season. And they go to Kent Good. He made his first start of his career against Albany, and quite honestly, I just don't trust this move. What I saw from Good did not wow me. He was solid. They're going to have to play really buttoned up defense to protect whoever they put in the pipes, and this is not a good situation for North Carolina.
We've made it this far down the road here, and we haven't mentioned the big matchup in this game, and that's at X. Third matchup between Brady Wambach and John Mullen. And Mullen has made steady improvement down the stretch. Even in that second Carolina game, you could see in the first half, he was getting some of his mojo back. And I mean, Brady's just going to be Brady, and he's going to win faceoffs. And you just have to kind of build that into the game plan here. But certainly John Mullen looked like the John Mullen of 2025 in that Yale game. And now he's just got to be chopping at the bit to go at it here against Brady Wambach. But he is just different. He's, first team All-American. I think he would have been a justified Tawarthon candidate if he made it over his own teammate in Owen Duffy here. When you're going up against a guy like Brady Wambach, even when you have somebody who's as talented as John Mullen, and we have seen him dominate at that same position, how do you have to factor that into the game plan, Quint, knowing that statistically they're probably going to have a number of possessions that you just know you're not going to have?
Yeah, you've got to cut down on your turnovers offensively. You've got to clear the ball really well, and maybe try to steal one or two with your ride. And you can't foul, because especially non-releasable penalties. You go non-releasable penalty against Carolina, and they could score multiple goals during a penalty situation, as they did in their win against Virginia earlier this season. In that second quarter, Virginia had like a 2-minute penalty that cost them nearly 4 goals. So I think I like Johnny Mullen, and this is a great matchup. Both these guys are elite face-off men. Mullen's a little bigger, a little more physical. Wambach is built closer to the ground. I've really been impressed with both of their ground ball work, and I thought Mullen last week was spectacular with the ball on his stick. He was just so clean, throwing great passes, making wonderful decisions. He was awesome. The one edge, I think, for Carolina that people overlook is Parker Hoffman coming in on the wing, little number 4. Syracuse wing play hasn't been grade A. It's okay. It's not great. And it's going to have to be great in this game, because if Mullen ties up Wambach, and that's all you can ask him to do, make it a 50-50, they got to get a long pole on Parker Hoffman, and their two wingers have got to dig and come up with some goals if Syracuse is going to get to 50%. So I think wing play is going to be critical here, because Mullen can only be asked to neutralize Wambach, and you need the other guys to do the rest.
Yeah, I was talking to Kark a little bit last week, and as you know, Quint, you go from Sam English and Carter Rice on the wings to, and this is no knock on Tyler McCarthy and the guys there, but they just haven't been as consistent as they need to be. So what you said about Brady is intriguing to me, because I love kind of the nuance in the X's and O's of it. Technique-wise, what makes Brady Wambach so efficient?
He wins the whistle, and then he puts the ball to space. And once he gets his stick on it, he never double clutches scoops. Like his stick has Velcro in it, and he gets his stick, and he's built low to the ground, which helps. But one-handed, across his body, behind himself, he can contort his body, and his balance is amazing. It's hard to knock him. He's like a great running back. It's hard to knock him in the hips or shoulders and get him to where he's falling down. You'll notice he spends no time on the ground. He maintains his feet, and so he's always competing for the ball. He knows where he wants to put it. He puts it there and scoops it up, and then he's got a bunch of releases while you're covering him pretty well. He does backhanded flips. He can circle out of trouble. He scored 2 goals against Albany. He's the complete package from a college faceoff guy. He reminds me a little bit of Trevor Baptiste. Baptiste a little bigger, but their exits, their ball control, and just their temperaments also. You don't see Brady getting emotional. You don't see him apt to have prolonged slumps that go with the position. When guys jump, sometimes they can lose their rhythm. So he's very good at fighting off that. I mean, he's the best in the country, but Johnny's not far behind. So again, if Johnny can neutralize, then it becomes a 3-on-3 battle.
Quint, North Carolina scored 24 goals without Owen Duffy against Albany. Again, I think this is a tougher matchup here against Syracuse, but that's still pretty noteworthy that you can have somebody and Dom Petromalo set the record, 10 goals in a game. Yeah. You lose Owen Duffy, who had 6 assists against Syracuse last time, obviously one of the 5 candidates for the biggest award in college lacrosse. But what is that adjustment for North Carolina without an offensive star like Owen Duffy in a matchup like this?
But will Duffy play? And if so, what type of running ability, cutting ability does he have?
Right, how
I thought they're
effective would
all.
he be? Yeah.
Yeah, how effective can he be? So that those are all questions. Like there's varying. Is he back at 100%? Is he back at 10%? Is he back at 50%? That's the hard part, I think, for John O'Derna is factoring that in. Do you want to waste your best cover man on him, or can you cover him with somebody who maybe you didn't anticipate? You know, you could put Beck on him if he's not a threat theoretically. So that remains to be seen. That's in game management. I thought Carolina actually worked the ball around. I thought their passing last week was very, very good, much better than it's been. And that to me was the surprise of the game that they played a more unselfish brand of team lacrosse, and the ball was popping from sticks to sticks. Now, again, it's against Albany's defense. Albany did not apply much friction on the perimeter. Albany was kind of sloughed in and let Carolina work the ball around. So, you know, Duffy's effectiveness remains to be seen. The guy that jumped out at me from last week was really Anthony Rea, the freshman from Half Hollow Hills, Long Island. He's getting to the net now, and his confidence in shooting on the run looks good. And then Gary Merrill had a handful of assists as a passer. So the growth of that second midfield line, the freshman, is notable in this game if Duffy is not at 100%.
Joey Spallina, to switch to Syracuse, Quint, has not scored a goal against Carolina this year. He was held scoreless, period, in the first matchup, had 4 assists in the second. But again, if the stars align here, the biggest game Joey's had was that Princeton game last year in the tournament. 4 goals, four assists. You just saw Joey Spallina at his best. And look, if what's been great about Joey this year is if you need him to be that guy who's at X and feeding the ball and getting 6 or 7 assists, he can do that for you. If he can win his matchups and get free and score 4 or 5 goals, he can do that. Some games he can do both. So he'll do what's needed of him, but it just feels like we're sitting on a game where we can look at that box score at the end of it, and Petramala's got 6 and he's got 5, and it's just like the Princeton game last year. I keep coming back to that. It's not, an apples to apples comparison, but I just feel like we could be sitting on a game where it's just like anything you can do, I can do better. And we're going to see 2 of the best players in the country just like in a shootout, and let's see who's left standing when it's over here. Does Joey maybe have to have that kind of game against North Carolina this time around, you think?
I don't think so. I think he's just got to be the point guard that he's been. And I loved his performance. Every time I see him this year, he's just making the right plays, making the smart play. He's at his best when he's the middleman. Okay, let's be serious. Like somebody else has got to dodge and draw a double team. They kick it to Joey, and then he picks apart the defense, throws the ball inside or to a wing, and someone else scores. He's he's one of the best middlemen that I've seen in the last decade. He can get to the net. That's not the strength of his game, but to sprinkle that in, it makes him dangerous. And then he's an amazing shooter. I think that's the underrated part of his game, that mid-range to inside shooting. He just doesn't miss, and he's really smart with the shots. But for whatever reason, he struggled against Carolina. Obviously, Coach Dave Petramala knows Joey Spallina really well from his time at Syracuse, and whatever they're doing, whether it's pressing out, the way they're marking him, I got to look at that a little closer. The way they're marking him has been effective, but it won't start with Joey. It's got to start with some of the penetrators, guys like Hoddle, McEntee, Leo, Peyton Anderson. I thought played a great game the other day. If those guys can get double teams, and then you get the ball to Joey's stick, the offense is going to really flow.
And one thing that popped in that Yale game, and we've seen it from time to time, and he didn't get drafted. He's certainly going to get drafted in the NLL. He didn't get drafted in the PLL draft. But there's Finn Thompson just sitting on that crease. And you watch in the first half of that Yale game, you just keep hearing the ping. He hit the post, I think, 3 times.
3 times, yeah.
But in the second half, settled down, found the net. So I think we focus so much on Joey, and rightfully so. But Finn's a senior, and this group of seniors that's just bound and determined to finally bring a championship back to Syracuse for the first time in 2009. There's a guy right there that if Carolina's not careful about could end up with 4 or 5 goals and be in the difference in this game.
Super high IQ. As you said, he hit the post a bunch of times. Symbiotic relationship with Spallina. Yeah. When Joey gets teams in that hangman situation, Thompson is deadly. He's got creative finishes. He was a little snake bit hitting the post, but I love the way he kept moving. He's never stationary in front of the net, and he's always putting pressure on defenders who turn their head for a second to look at the ball. Boom, he's gone. And he can be a step ahead. I thought Syracuse goals 10 and 16 from that game were like, take those and send them to every high school coach in the country in terms of the passing you've seen from the Orange on those goals in particular. It was dodge, draw the double team, kick it, move it one more for the layup. Just gorgeous goals 10 and 16. And to me, that's why the Syracuse offense has a shot to go all the way. When you're playing team offense like that, it's really impossible to stop.
Quinn, I touched on it earlier, but I want to circle back to it in this sense. You mentioned Petramala knows Spallina, and you can look at all the matchups. They've seen each other twice. Is this just a situation where you're at that time of the year, it's like, this is what we do and try and stop it? Or do you think that each team maybe has one more thing up their sleeve that the other has not seen that could be the difference in this game?
Well, Syracuse defensively has shown some double pole recently at brief increments where they bumped a pole up and bumped a shorty down to cover an attackman. I'm not sure that's what you do against North Carolina. You probably end up shorting Brevin Wilson, and he can run. He's quick. The other thing they've shown some zone, and I kind of like a zone against Carolina's second midfield because freshmen aren't typically as educated, experienced in uncracking a zone. But the problem with that is you got Don Petramala.
Yeah.
And so you play a zone and you're going to invite some 14-yard shots from number 77. That's not going to go over well. So if you do a zone, there's got to be a high recognition of where 77 Petramala is. He's been the orange killer this year. He's just gotten too many shots off. I think one game they tried to cover him with Billy Dwan the third. That took Billy out of a lot of the slide packages and Billy likes to be the double team man, and leaving Dom is not what you want to do. I'd almost put Beck or somebody else on him and try to face guard him and maybe play a 5-man scheme behind it. Those are potential wrinkles for John O'Derna. If you're North Carolina, you're pretty comfortable in the way you've been playing defense this year. Peter Tolman, I like a lot. They're a long pole midi. I think he's got really good wheels and a great motor, and they're solid down below. They're not spectacular, but they've got to protect this inexperienced goalie. I mean, he's a senior and he made his first start last week. I don't think I've ever heard of that.
That is pretty crazy going into an important matchup like this. Quint, before we let you go, you guys, and you guys being Anish and Paul Kark and Dana Boyle, are going to be on both matchups this weekend. So I just wanted to get quick thoughts from me on the other three games. Hopkins-Notre Dame. I mean, Notre Dame being here, not a soul surprised about that one. Hopkins, maybe your eyebrows pop up a little bit. That was a hell of a win they had over Cornell here. And I know that momentum doesn't necessarily carry over from one game to the next, but man, if you're Hopkins, you're playing with house money right now. You don't care. You're just going to go into this thing with no expectations, whereas there's always expectations, it seems, these days with Notre Dame.
I was very surprised that the Hopkins defense up at Cornell, Luke Martin and Carson Brown, able to neutralize Willem Firth and Ryan Goldstein. The challenge for Hopkins this week is entirely different. And it's not, honestly, I don't think it's a great matchup for them defensively. Notre Dame's midfielders have great speed. Wilma Harris, Matt Jeffrey, you've got Will Angrick, you've got Dylan Faison, the reclassified freshman. Those guys can really move in space, kind of like Yale last week. That is not the strength of the Hopkins defense. So it'll be interesting to see how Jamison Kester, their defensive coordinator, chooses to defend those midfielders. My criticism of Notre Dame is the ball's not behind the net enough. But in this game, I think you do want to attack Hopkins from up top. If Hopkins struggles in those matchups, they'll have to go zone. And zone may not be that bad against Notre Dame, because remember last year in the NCAA tournament, Penn State went zone late in that quarterfinal game and shut Notre Dame out for the last 15 minutes of that game. So if I'm Hopkins, I'm working on my zone schemes this week. Somehow I'm trying to get my poles up top to maybe cover some of those Notre Dame midfielders, because that's where I feel Hopkins is vulnerable in their speed category in terms of defending those Notre Dame really athletic midfielders.
Penn State-Princeton, Jeff Tambroni, the lone West Genesee coach, left, but that's pretty notable. You had Dan Shamati at Richmond and John Galloway at Jacksonville. West Genny pumping out the head coaches here. And Penn State had an up and down year, but it feels like Tambroni teams just stabilize at the time of the year they need to here. But Princeton, they're the top seed for a reason. They've been one of the best teams, one of the most consistent teams in the country all year. So as much as Jeff Tambroni teams tend to stabilize at this point, Quint, they're going to have their hands full in this one.
Penn State beat Princeton in February. They jumped out to a 7-1 lead. It was Penn State's third game. It was Princeton's first game. So if you're Princeton, this is the game you're looking forward to. Penn State's, they had the three mind-boggling losses this year to Villanova, Michigan, and Navy. Goalie play was below 45 to 40% in those games. Preston Hawkins is their freshman goalie. He's solidified himself, though, over the course of the second half of the season. And Penn State was without Hunter Aquino at times. They were without Andrew Beard at times. I think they're going to be able to score, and I think Princeton's going to be able to score. And I think Princeton's looking at a similar game that they played last year against what was it in the
The Syracuse game in the
in the
quarters?
semifinals.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Syracuse game. So I think that game's high scoring, and Ryan Craddock could be the edge for Princeton between the pipes.
And Georgetown-Duke. Georgetown always here in the quarterfinals. Haven't really seen them get over that hump consistently, of course, into the Final Four. So they're hungry to make that bid. And Duke's got the we're not supposed to be here thing going for them. Everybody said they shouldn't have been in the tournament. They made it in the tournament, and now they're just kind of riding that wave here. But, Duke always had the talent. That was never a question about that team. It was just a matter of the resume. But now they're in, and they're out to prove that they belong here and can ride this thing all the way to Charlottesville.
They're learning how to finish games, because in all four of those losses, they had a lead at halftime. And I thought they outplayed Notre Dame and lost 7-6. They gave Syracuse everything they could handle that night up in the Dome. That was a great game. A couple things have changed for them. They're getting the ball behind the net more with Liam Kirschus, 55 in blue. He's had a nice last couple games, and their passing on offense has improved. Obviously, Max Sloat and Ben Johnston are the names on their offense, but some of their complementary guys in the last two games are more involved. And I like the way they're spraying the ball east, west, north, south, getting it behind more. The ball's not dying in sticks. The one thing that stands out in that matchup, they met last year in a first round game at Koskinen Stadium at Duke, and Georgetown pulled off the upset. So Georgetown is certainly at home, but I think Georgetown capitalized last week on a Virginia defense, and they made Virginia pay for some errors in the substitution box and some offsides, and then some areas inside in the slot. And Virginia's internal defense was not as buttoned up as it should have been, and so I see that game being kind of close and low scoring, as opposed to the first game that we just talked about. I think it's going to be a high scoring game in the teens.
Quint, I'll finish on this thought. Free idea for the ESPN production here.
Nice.
We need a booth cam, because being at James Stewart Stadium last year and being in that press box, watching the interaction between you and Kark and Anish is a show in and of itself. I mean, watching how you guys do your thing, you're so into the game. Kark's flying all over the press box, and Anish is trying to keep the chaos calm, and you guys do such a great job on the broadcast, but I think people need to actually see what goes on in that room, because it's a show in and of itself. It's a lot. We
do demos. Kark and I will do demos on each other as we're talking stuff through. I'll pretend I'm playing defense on him, and then we're constantly hitting each other, thumbs up, thumbs down. Who's going next? We'll make fun of Anish every now and then. We'll celebrate goals. You got to feel it sometimes, I think, to feel it. So we'll celebrate goals, and we'll. We'll give it a chagrin when we don't like something we see.
You have bruises after these? I've watched you guys literally elbow each other sometimes. I'm like, man,
we go at it. The biggest fight is over desk space, because my board, my boards are these big these folders, and then I got my notebook, and then I got my Diet Coke, and so we're always trying to get there early and lock down our space. That's the real battle. And then he'll push my stuff over, and I'll push his stuff over. He'll push my stuff over, I'll push his stuff over.
Oh, that's great. That's amazing. God bless Anish. I don't know how he keeps you guys in line, but he
and he's just over there reading his poetry pregame to get himself in the right mood.
That's right, exactly. He's always got some kind of poetic view on things. Dana, she's on the field. She doesn't have to deal with you guys. So
no, she just gives us wisecracks, during commercial breaks.
Good stuff, Quint. Good luck on both broadcasts this week. We'll see you in Long Island this week, and hopefully we'll see
going back home
as well. Yeah, going back
home. Couple towns over from where I grew up, so it's always exciting for me to get back to Long Island.
You got a spot you got to hit when you come home every time, or
no? There's a good deli near Short Stadium right down the street that we'll hit for Friday. We'll go to practices, but we'll take a little break and go over there, get some sandwiches. So that's always good. And the bagels are much better than they are in Charlottesville. We always kid Dana about that. She's like, "Oh, Bodo's bagels are the best." I'm like, "Bodo's? Try some when you're on Long Island."
I will concede, Long Island bagels are absolutely the best.
Yes.
exciting times as the NCAA quarterfinals get underway this weekend. We'll see if Syracuse can advance to back-to-back Final Four. Charlottesville awaits, but those pesky North Carolina Tar Heels first. Great insight from Quint there. And like I said, watching that booth is just as entertaining as watching the game itself. But we'll coverage Saturday from Long Island, home of the great bagels, as the Orange take on North Carolina. So stay tuned here on the pod, on the Syracuse Sports Insider text line. And let me remind you to become a Syracuse Sports Insider. It's right there on your screen. If you are watching on YouTube, all the info in the show notes as well, and how you can get direct text message access to me anytime. Latest news, opinion, information. Just want to shoot the breeze and talk SU sports. Great back and forth as always during games. Our lacrosse fans have been awesome throughout this season, especially during the tournament. Let's keep it going and see if we can carry it on to Charlottesville here. But being a Syracuse Sports Insider gives you direct text message access to me anytime. We hope you can sign up today and become a part of our growing community, some of the more passionate Syracuse sports fans out there. So stay tuned for post-game coverage later this week from Syracuse, North Carolina at Hofstra. We'll have you covered on syracuse.com, the Syracuse Sports Insider text line, and the Syracuse Sports podcast as well. That's going to do it for this edition, though, of Syracuse Sports. Please subscribe on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube so you can keep up with all the latest. You guys have a good one here, and we'll catch you next time on Syracuse Sports. Let's bring in our friend Craig Marshall here. Turn Around is the name of the song, and we can feature your original music here on the pod. Get in touch. All the info in the show notes and how you can get the information to do that. Craig, take us out, buddy.
It was late somewhere, it was closing time. I was only trying to escape my mind. When you caught my eye and it made my day. But it didn't last long, you were walking away. Oh, what else could I do? Make this dream come true. Turn around, don't let me down. Give it one more chance if you can, don't leave. Let me see just what I found. Take a look my way, baby, please turn around. Well, I don't know why, and it could be wrong. I think maybe we would be getting along. Could we talk somehow? Can I know your name? And forgive me once if it sounds insane. But I think you might approve. Honey, it's your move. Turn around, don't let me down. Give it one more chance if you can, don't leave. Closing time. I was only trying to escape my mind. Oh, what else could I do? Make this dream come true.